What's up, YouTubers? Today I'm going to go ahead and do a disassembly and maintenance of the CRKT, the new S35VN Blade HQ exclusive Tuna. This is a Lucas Burnley design knife. One of my viewers, Aaron, wanted to take down, and I normally don't do them. I will normally videotape when I do them, just so if I mess up a knife, I can put it back together, but I'll go ahead and see how this one works out. So this will be my first knife takedown post. Forgive me if I mess up. I'm going to go ahead and start by, I have already measured out, and I know that the pivot is a T8, and I will, like I said, I'll have a lot of fast forwarding going on in there. I'm going to start with the pivot here. Has a nice little brass copper there. I don't know. I assume it's probably anodized copper colored. I'm going to go ahead and take off the pocket clip, because one of the things I found out on this particular knife was that, and I'm not very good at talking and doing at the same time. I'll do my best. One of the things that one of the cons of this particular knife was that they kind of rushed through, and this channel here is a little bit sharp, where they actually cut out the lock bar. So I did actually want to take just a little Spyderco ceramic and just knock that down the slightest bit so that it's not sharp, because it was literally sharp enough that it could almost poke me. I'm going to take off the clip for this particular one as well. Generally speaking, I'll follow the Nick Shabazz model of taking apart and keeping things in order. So I'll usually start with the pivot over here and then move my way left. So even, you know, given the fact that things can be very finicky going back together, I'll even keep like these pocket clip screws in order that they're going to go in, and then I'll go ahead and put my my backspacer screws there. And those, I believe, I think these are T6 as well for my back spacers. Oh, yep, these are free spinnings, so they're going to, oh, looks like one, maybe? No, these are free spinnings, so I'm going to have to go ahead and grab a T6 for the other side to hold this one. T6, nope. T7. Yeah, the Nick Shabazz school basically says have all your tools ready and identified. Have them there for you. Oops. Go ahead and put my scale side over there. We'll go ahead and bring this guy apart. There we go. So yeah, they've done some pretty deep milling there on this scale. It is a stainless steel. This is not a titanium, and for the price, I was a little bit surprised. I wouldn't mind spending a little bit, them spending a little more, and me spending a little more to go with the titanium, but they did mill it out nicely, and in the weight I think recalled ended up pretty good on this particular one. I don't know, 3-point change, 3.4 ounces or so, 3.6 maybe on the high side. So as you see, we have bearings on these. One of the things I also do want to check is see if they were steel bearings or ceramic. So we'll go ahead and do that test now. I do have a little magnet here. The answer is those are steel bearings, so they're not ceramic bearings. It's definitely sticking right to this magnet. Now it could be the encapsulated cage, but they do look like they are in fact steel and not ceramic on here. Yeah, I think that's a brass cage. and it is steel bearings. So, big disappointment? No, not a huge surprise. CRKT doesn't use the most premium stuff any more than they have to. There's your blade. There's the back side. I'll go ahead and slap that on there. Just don't want to. I do want to keep these kind of in order, just to see how things fit. It looks like they didn't go overly sloppy on the detent hole there. I have seen some CRKTs where they've been really sloppy and it was not so good. This appears to be pretty good there. We'll see how it turns out on video. But for my maintenance, I go ahead and just use alcohol and good old bed sheets with a little spray bottle to clean this stuff out. Like I said, I have everything that I know about taking knives apart to I have a Nick Shabazz to thank for this. Alrighty. Clean off the back spacer there. Nice little aluminum with the copper colored anodizing. That's one of the things I actually really liked about this particular blade. I'll take that stop pin out and clean that off as well. They did a really good job on this one. Like I said, I've never seen the custom on this one, but I think it's probably, if I had to guess, it's pretty true in terms of some of the aesthetics of it. This particular one. So I'll go ahead and keep that. So as you see, we do have a little washer ring here because you wouldn't want to have your bearings running against that the micarta directly. So it's a good thing to have that. We'll go ahead and clean that off. And be sure and keep the same channel which runs against those so we don't mess up anything on there. I'm going to go ahead and I use Tough Glide for my I guess in lieu of nano oil or whatever. It seems to work pretty well. Couple drops of that on my bearings. So I don't know that it really matters because it's really bearings on bearings, or it's really the steel running against the steel. But I do tend to always just observe the way they put it together, and so for this particular knife, they had it so that the open channel that the bearings go in is against the micarta side or the scale side. So I'll go ahead and put that in there. Actually, I'll go ahead, I forgot. I'll go ahead and clean the pivot off. Oh, there we go. Flying stuff. I'll give that just a little bit of that Tough Glide around that pivot there. I don't mind using a little bit extra. I'm going to go ahead and actually I'll go ahead and throw the drops directly on the blade in this case. Very interesting. It does have a very large S there. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe to identify their S35VN versions for this model, but I don't know that they would necessarily need that. Ooh, actually this one does have a burr right there where the lock bar meets up, so that's something that I will go ahead and just knock that burr down. Of course, being S35VN, it's going to take a little while, so I might have to get out the grittier Spyderco. Yeah, that's better. Clear that burr off there. you can see that it has, you might be able to see this, we'll find out. There's a little bit of burn on there, so when they were kind of basically cutting in where the lock bar would go against the blade, they got a little bit aggressive on there. We're kind of pressing for time a little bit, I suppose. We'll go ahead and put the, couple drops of oil there. All right, and we'll go ahead and reverse that. Put a couple drops of oil. Don't know if I clean this one off or not. Clean it again. Obviously I haven't used this much. It's a fairly new release model. So, oops, I just realized I did not put the pivot collar in. Oil going around there. Get a little bit of a squirt of alcohol. Alright, at this point in time, we'll go ahead and wash off, go ahead and wipe off the stop pin there. I don't know that if there is a difference when it comes back together and things don't go together right. Sometimes reversing the stop pin and flipping it over will solve some problems. I don't anticipate necessarily in this case. One thing I did want to also find out is if this one also has its own separate, this one has its own little separate washer. It does. There we go. So yeah, this particular one does have its own separate washer in there. We'll go ahead and wash those out as well. Get any gunk. You can use a Q-tip too. This one's so new that I'm not going to necessarily use a Q-tip to go ahead and clean out in that area. Again, a mixture bag special. Go ahead and make sure I have the right channel side against there. I'm going to go ahead and put a couple drops. Oh, actually, whoops. As I mentioned, I knew I'd forget something. Yeah, one of the things that I just wanted to quickly do is just remove the sharpness of this little channel here where the cutout has occurred. See, make sure I'm on the camera. Good thing is they did do a good stone washing on this blade, so it can take some scratching. I don't fret my knives overly much, other than the few Slave Queens I have. I don't really fret them. There we go. Oh yeah, much better. So yeah, I was disappointed that I had to do this at all. But I've come to expect this from CRKT. I keep calling them CKRT in my videos, for those that have watched them. Yeah, that's better. It's just, like I said, if anything, yeah, this side, oh my. Well, my hand doesn't really go against that, but that side is obviously also very sharp right there. So, all right, we'll go ahead and assemble this side of the scale and start putting it back together. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and throw that out there. All right. So you're going to notice that this particular scale side does have a little D, a little flat side, and then I have to match that up to this particular one here, the pivot side. So there will be a little bit of maybe a little bit of cajoling of that. At this point in time, I am going to go ahead and put in. Oh, never mind. I have the other one already on this side, so I actually had a kind of a flip-flop side. I don't see any compelling reason necessarily to take them off and clean out everything. As long as, we'll see how this thing goes together. Should be okay. Sometimes you just need to put a bit on the other side. And this is always the complexity, isn't it? Oop. Oop. Oh, there we go. So we got it. Oops. And of course, this is why I like to have it in full out position so that I don't have my lock bar tension there. At this point in time, we'll go ahead and, this isn't really need cleaning particularly. Put that collar back on. I always like to start with the pivot to put these things back together. Put a little blue Loctite. So we'll have to come back to that one. Slides a bit of a hair. Oops, I should wash that one off. Get some of that gunk off of there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the back side here. So again, going from the pivot outward, this particular screw is going to go into this one, and this particular screw goes into my scale side. Do the last of my back spacer. Screws. All right, and then we'll start to tighten things down, make sure everything rolls. Obviously at this point in time my pivot is not at all tightened, so my blade is going to be entirely over on this side. As I basically tighten that together, you'll see how that'll basically go back to towards the middle. I'm going to go ahead and tighten these a smidgen. Alrighty. Of course, I think it's gonna, well, we'll see. Actually, it shouldn't have to spin. Oops. I'll go ahead and show how we bring that to the center. We'll see how this thing performs. Oh, it feels very loose. Well, not too loose. Ooh. And that's why you see knife guys with band-aids all over their fingers. It's not necessarily the playing of the knives, it's the tuning of them and messing with them. One of the things I realized I forgot to do was put a little drop of oil in the detent ball hole. So I'm going to go ahead and just actually put this inside there, and I don't know what the light is looking like up there, but basically just put a drop of this right on the detent ball. I'm going to have to use a flashlight. I don't have one with me. I'll do that later, but yeah, it is a good idea to put, I usually actually like to put KPL, knife pivot lube, in that detent ball hole on the blade. I forgot to on this one. I was more concerned with the videotaping of it. Obviously not having done a lot of these and had to actually narrate through them. But it's actually in pretty good condition. Almost perfectly centered there. Let's see if we have, there's really no blade play. I'm going to see if I can go a little bit tighter and still keep that good action. Since it was a double screw in that pivot, it was not like a solid pivot. There's actually a screw on each side, so there's one here and then one in there, and they each went into the pivot. I'm just going to go ahead and snug this up to the degree that I can. There we go. That's probably pretty tight. It's nearly on center. I would need to tighten this side a bit. Dial that back the slightest bit. Oh yeah, there's no give at all on that thing, so it's nice and tight. Has a really good action at this point in time. So I'm very satisfied with where it's at in terms of that, the blade and everything. So at this point in time, I'm just going to go ahead and tighten down these. These don't need to go in too hard. Too tight, I should say. In fact, we don't want those in too tight for next time we have to do maintenance on this one. And it is perfectly centered. Back spacer's on, tight. I no longer have my sharp channel there. I will go ahead and put the clip back on, but I don't necessarily keep that for this recording at this point in time. I'll probably just stop the recording. And that's really been the takedown of the CRKT Burnley Tuna and S35VN. I'm actually very pleased with this knife, and actually going to be much happier now. It's I will say, just knowing the little bit of maintenance that I've done on that, all is well. Again, I was a little disappointed they used the ceramic bearings versus steel. Maybe. I don't know that's going to be a big deal though, assuming that they're hardened steel bearings. Hope all is well. Hope you enjoyed this. If you did, go ahead and hit a like and subscribe if you found it of use. And have a good day. Take care now.